When life gets overwhelming, where do you turn to for help? Maybe you look to good things like friends and family who are able to offer advice and encouragement. Maybe you look inward to try and just deal with it all by your own self-determination and wisdom. Or maybe you look to negative or harmful coping strategies that temporarily alleviate the stress, but don't truly bring peace. Whatever you look to for help, this is the same question asked in Psalm 121, when it says, "I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come?" And he answers, "My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth." Psalm 121 is known as a psalm of ascent that was traditionally sung as people from all over Israel would journey to Jerusalem for various festivals and celebrations at the temple. So the picture here in Psalm 121 is that when he felt overwhelmed or in need and in distress, wondering who would see his condition and worrying from where would his help come, he could look to the hills of Jerusalem upon which the temple was mounted and know that his help comes from the Lord. And notice how the help of the Lord is described. First, it says, "He will not let your foot be moved." That doesn't mean the Lord will save us from every trial, but it does mean that He's with us through them. That no matter how overwhelming it might be, our foundation is secure in Him. Then He describes how the Lord never sleeps or slumbers. God isn't like a watchman who falls asleep from exhaustion in the night. He is perpetually attentive to our cries for help and actively prepared to meet our every need. Then He says God is like a shield. He's like a shield that shades us from the blistering heat of the sun in the day and shelters us from the bitter cold at night. He keeps us from all the evil that might threaten us. He says He holds our very life in His hands. And finally, He says, "The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in wherever you go from this time forth and forevermore." This is what the people of Israel would look to when they saw the hills of Jerusalem. And they would be reminded of the help that comes from the Lord. And it reminds me of what Jesus says in Matthew 6, that if the Creator of heaven and earth takes care of the lilies of the field and the birds of the air, how much more will He take care of you? My help comes from the Lord. Now, today we don't make all the same pilgrimages to the temple or look to the hills of Jerusalem to find our help in the Lord. But there is one hill. There is one hill in Jerusalem that we can look to for our help and our fortress and our salvation. And that is a hill called Mount Calvary, where the Son of God was crucified. And though it seemed like God had forsaken Jesus and left Him in silence and failed to come to His help, Jesus said this about His body: "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it up in 3 days." The crucified and risen body of Jesus is our indestructible temple that we can look to forever and know for certain that our help comes from the Lord.